Before you buy a house, you may want to watch this video. And if you already own a house, I'm pretty sure a lot of what I'm about to say will either have you nodding your heads in agreement or wincing at certain moments. So buying a house is often seen as the ultimate goal for many people in the UK. More so in England, there's definitely a huge obsession with owning a house and doing almost anything to get yourselves on that property ladder. I'm talking about shared ownership schemes, taking out 35-year mortgages, or jumping onto any help to buy scheme the government has to offer. Now, with all those examples, for the right person and situation, I suppose it can work, but I think it's important for today's video to talk about the true cost of buying a house, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. So in today's video, I'll take a closer look at the various expenses you'll need to factor in when buying a house and even while you have it if you stick around. So let's start with the most obvious cost associated to buying a house, the price of the house itself. Now, according to the UK Land Registry, the average house price in the UK is currently around £295,000. Now, this can differ depending on the source that you use. And of course, this can vary depending on where you are and where you live in the country. In some areas in London, it will obviously be significantly more. But if you venture further up north, you could get yourself a nice family home for that price. However, unless you are a cash buyer opting to buy this house, there's going to come other costs that will be associated with this, which of course, your first one being mortgage costs. Now, rates, as many of you know, have fluctuated for the past 6 months a fair bit. But if we look historically, you can also see that there's also been many changes throughout the years too. Depending on how much deposit you're able to put down and the price of the house, you will likely all have different mortgage amounts and monthly payments coming out each month. Now, this will likely be your largest expense for many of you, hence the ultimate goal of trying to pay down that mortgage to release that burden from your monthly direct debits. But paying a mortgage isn't the only cost, unfortunately, my friends. Next up, we have mortgage arrangement fees. Now, before even getting yourself a mortgage, you're going to be hit with mortgage arrangement fees. Now, I've bought and sold many properties and they're always different, so don't quote me on this, but assume anywhere between 0 to 3% depending on your loan and personal situation. You may also find certain fees can be added to the end of your mortgage, i.e. the total amount in some circumstances too. But just know that you're going to have to factor this in somewhere along your budgeting. Following this, we then have valuation fees, because when you buy a house, the mortgage lender will need to value it independently. And this is where the valuation fee comes in. Now, in my experience, on average, these cost between £300 to £500. Following this, we have broker fees. Now, sometimes you can go direct to a lender, but I usually use brokers. In my experience, it's just worked better for myself. Sometimes a broker will charge a flat fee, others will charge you depending on the mortgage product, and some will just take a kickback solely from the lender. Now, there's pros and cons to each of these. For example, I personally prefer to pay a broker a flat fee. Just from a psychological perspective, my assumption is that they would then try and get the best product for my particular situation and not be swayed by some commission or potential kickbacks from the lenders and their products. Moving on. Now, this is often overlooked, but when you take out a 25, 30, 35-year mortgage, in fact, any mortgage, the chances are you're going to fix it for a few years and then require a refinance. And if this is the case, you would need to refinance it at some stage, and this will unfortunately cost you, my friends. Now, I've had some cases where the current lender has the best product to renew the mortgage term on, and that's been a very small cost. I can't recall off the top of my head because it was a while ago. But other refinances like the one we recently did cost a fair bit because we had to pay broker fees and get a solicitor to do all the paperwork, which of course comes at a cost, and nicely moves us into the next one, which is of course, you're going to need a solicitor, my friends, to handle the legal aspects of buying a house, such as conveyancing. Now, solicitor fees can range from £500 to £2,500. I've actually paid both those figures, and sometimes these can depend on many factors such as the house price itself or even the complexity of the purchase that you're going through. Now, when you buy a property, sometimes you may want to carry out a survey, or the lender may want to identify potential issues, and again, this can cost anywhere from £300 to £1,500 in my experience. Now, there's obvious discounts for first-time buyers right now, and we've had some in the past, but if it's an investment property, my friends, you would definitely be hit with stamp duty land tax. This is a tax you pay on buying a property essentially, and the amount depends on the price of the property. There are also many calculations out there in case you need them, as you can see from this quick Google search on the screen. But even for some first-time buyers may be hit with this too. Now, when you get a house, before you complete, you will need building insurance in place. And this again can range from anywhere from £15 a month to, well, as much as you really want to pay, depending on obviously your insurance needs. Now we're getting closer to moving there. So we're nearly there and we've kind of passed the acquisition stage. But one cost to remember is the cost of actually moving your belongings to your new home. Now, this can cost anywhere from a few £100s to, well, a few £1,000s, depending on, of course, how much stuff you have and, of course, how far you're moving across the country. And now, my friends, we're in the property and we're looking at everything else. If you're a landlord, There's costs like maintenance, insurance, management fees, gas safety certificates, EICRs. These are the things you want to look out for. But if it's a personal residence, my friends, then you need to consider things that I don't think many people actually think about when budgeting for a house. The upkeep of the property. Things like, I don't know, your lawn, your utility bills, your council bills, your furnishings, your amendments to that property that you're going to want to do. I could go on. And many of these may be really obvious to you right now as I've said them, but when I first moved into my home and I didn't have mommy and daddy helping me, I was like, what is adulthood all about? The true cost of being an adult really wasn't that fun, and it can definitely get costly. So friends, if I missed anything, let me know down below. And if there's any questions, then of course, let me know too.